Yes.
All
Yes,
righty.
we're ready now.
Okay, super. I'd like to call the fifth Adams County Cultural Council study session to order. Zoe, would you call the roll, please?
When I say your name, please say here. Joyce Downing,
Here.
Aaron Vega,
Here.
Erica Hernandez, Emily Burr,
Here.
Jim Toll,
Here.
Larry Dunn,
Here. Excuse me,
Vivian
here.
Veda,
Here.
and Carrie Lang.
Here.
That
Thank-
concludes roll.
Thank you. Next, we will move on the agenda to the study session statements. Dana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we dive into business, I would like to thank the council members for their time and commitment to the SCFD, the county, and the arts, science, and cultural community. I would also like to thank any organizations that are with us or members of the public who are joining us today for their time and dedication. It is important to remember that as an official council of the county doing SCFD business, these meetings are public and anything we say today reflects on the council, the county, and SCFD. As we move into discussions, I ask that we contemplate the three core guidelines that SCFD believes are imperative to conducting a welcoming, productive, and professional meeting. Be respectful of people, of organizations, of opinions, and of time. Be positive, assume best intentions of each other and of grantees. Be present, own your experiences, participate, and engage. While this is a reminder to the council, it also states our values and expectations of this meeting for any visitors that are here with us today. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dana. Next, I'll read the statement concerning the study session process confirmation. All council members should have their own Flux portal open to follow along, excuse me. We will not be screen sharing. Discussion will take place for each organization and category applied for, and will be guided by the SCFD 2024 rubrics. Please be courteous on the virtual platform. This is an open discussion, but we'll call on any hands raised by the council. Council members, please keep your cameras on throughout the discussion. There is not a scheduled break, but we will suggest one about halfway through the discussion list. Just a note to the public, study sessions are open to the public for observation only. Organizations will not have the opportunity to comment. Please keep your cameras off and yourself muted. Study sessions are recorded. Recordings will be available within 2 business days on the Adams County Cultural Council website. All right. We will now move into our study session discussions. And the first organization will be CM Dance. And they are requesting funding for 2 projects. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Do I see any hands?
Yeah, just reading my notes. I can kick this off. Yeah, I'm seeing that. I really appreciate them, offering metrics, the idea that, 14.7% of attendance, that they can actually tell us what the attendance numbers are for Adams County. So I really, really appreciate that. I'm learning through the course of this that a lot of times the other expense, when it's very large, is SCFD funding from other counties. I'm seeing that in a lot of applications. They did not make that clear in the budget, but I'm seeing that as a trend. So I just wanted to share that piece of insight. I had that lightning strike my brain today with the rest of the council. I was reading that through, and there are quite a few groups that say other is, and it's usually a very large is other counties SCFD funding that we're, so like, okay, great. The I would suggest it looks like they list a lot, especially in Project 2, they list a lot of students. And this came up last week, or the previous study session. Are they listing every student in that school? If so, it'd be nice to know how all the students get to participate. I'm also seeing a note that they might have a history of perhaps overestimating their their attendance on their applications. Is that a kind, gentle way of saying that? So a little clarity, that's a whole lot of students. It feels like that might be every student, in which case it'd be nice to know how they do integrate with every student. So I just love a little clarity on that. And otherwise, I think it seems like a great program.
Thanks,
Larry?
Erin.
Sorry. Thanks, Aaron. Larry?
Yeah, I was wondering a couple of things. Like Aaron said, that other category in Project 1, $14,000, that seems like a lot, not to be broken down a little bit, but it's an ongoing battle, I guess. I was wondering about, they say in Project 1, the organization anticipates $100 in individual donations, but on its major contributors reports lists a total of $52,095, including $16,595 from individual donors. And the same for Project 2. This seems like a discrepancy for what they're asking for and what they've gotten in the past. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I was a little confused by that.
Okay, thanks, Larry. And anyone else?
I'm sorry. One more thing, and
Sure,
that is Project 2 did not list an end date. I don't know if that was just an oversight, but it should be
Yeah.
included.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't have any complaints really about this this application. It's pretty average, I guess.
And I see, Susan, is that your hand?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, they said something about marketing to seniors, and community centers and stuff like that, and was just wondering a little bit about what that was all about, and I don't know how convenient the Gaylord is as a location for general populace to come to, unless you're going to a convention or business meeting. It's kind of, and you have to pay for parking and all that stuff. So it seemed like a bit of an expensive out of the way venue to me, but I'm not questioning the logic really. I just kind of had a couple thoughts about it.
Okay,
And Dana has her hand up.
Dana?
This is more of a question to the council, because again, we don't read the grants per se, but the Gaylord Rockies or Gaylord Resort of the Rockies, did anyone check to see if that's Adams County, and is that
It's Adams County.
Yes.
It is.
it
Ed.
is?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know Denver kind of goes kind of ziggy zaggy to the airport.
Gaylord's Aurora, Gaylord's Adams.
Yeah.
We hold on to that one in Aurora. That
Okay.
is our
Chloe and Adams, we're very proud of it.
very proud of it.
Okay. Well, and I was noting for project 2, I was wondering about the number of attendees also, but then as I was reading through it, they kept referring to assemblies. And I'm wondering, when you bring all the kiddos in for the assemblies, if that doesn't add up to that 2,000
That
number.
makes sense. That makes sense. I was like, this seems like every kid in the school, which is great. I just don't know how they're gonna make every kid in the school dance. But if it's an
Yeah.
assembly, thank you for that. I must have missed that.
Yeah, because I had to read it a couple times because I was getting a little confused about it. And then I went, oh yeah, because they're saying presents dance in assemblies and plus classrooms. If it was just classrooms, I would have a question mark. But when they included the word assemblies, I went, yeah, it does make a difference that way. So, anyone else? All right. With that, we'll move on the agenda to Young Voices. And they are asking for funding for 2 projects. So with that, I'll open it up.
Can someone remind me of their DBA? I'm
Pardon?
what is their doing business by name?
Oh.
Because Young Voices isn't pulling up in the portal for me. I'm sorry.
They don't have a DBA, so let me check, Emily, your portal.
It should be there. Yeah.
I mean, I
Quick question.
reviewed it, but
Emily, did you check the search feature real quick?
yeah,
Okay.
proceed without me.
It's of Colorado, if that helps. It's Young Voices of Colorado. Maybe if you search Colorado, although that'll give you 70.
Well, anyone else have any comments or anything while we're waiting for Emily to find Young Voices?
Again,
thought they
please
were,
don't wait for me.
Okay. Okay, Larry.
I thought their Adams County outreach was very strong. Yeah. I thought they they fulfilled most of, if not all, the requirements of that category, and I commend them on that.
That's true.
Yeah, I did. As a kid that got their start in the arts with the YMCA youth choir, this speaks to my heart, being a boy soprano in rural Ohio. Um, but this gets to a larger question, and this is going to come up for me a couple of times, and we've talked about it a little bit, and I'm looking forward to the retreat to talk more with y'all, because I respect the heck out of what you guys think. With the organizations that are, I mean, I'm reading this. Am I reading it correctly that they had an 86% reliance on SCFD? Did I make that up?
Did I see that in the financial?
In the detail of contributors, it
Yeah.
says that they have an 86.26% reliance on SCFD.
That's only contributed income. If you look down below in that
Great.
green box, it says 34% because
34%. Oh, okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, still, I think there's some opportunity there. I think there's an opportunity there to maybe diversify that contributed income a little bit. So that's just a suggestion. But the program itself, they're obviously very successful. They've got a surplus. They had a double-digit surplus last year, which I think is great. But if they've got a $17,000 surplus and they're talking about using that surplus to build a new roof, I don't know. I don't know. There's just interesting things there, but you're right, Dana. It's not that's a high percentage of contributed income, not the percentage of their profits. So that question of we have limited funds, sales tax is probably going to tighten over the next few years. You know, where do we distribute those funds? And if organizations are showing very large surpluses, are they in need as much? I know that's a broad question. It doesn't really have to do with this particular thing, but in terms of the actual grant, I love the program, and the idea that the registration includes meals, snacks. I think that's great for after school programs for these kiddos. And I think you know, just giving them access to the fact that no tuition is charged, I think is incredible. So kudos to them for building a really strong program.
Right. You know, and I totally agree with everything you're saying, and I just want to highlight the fact that, you know, they've reached out to one of the areas that we want to support so much, which is Eastern Colorado and Bennett Strasburg area. You know, so I think that's really something that is very good to read, you know, and the organizations are listening to what we're saying to take those type of programs out there. So anyone else have anything?
I finally got to the application, so yay, there's that. One thing I did want to point out, in addition to all the other great comments, was, you know, I really appreciate the fact that they do strategic planning so frequently, you know, every few years to adjust for the changes that they're seeing. Seems like a really important and solid management practice to maintain their stability and their you know, relevance to the greater area around them. So appreciate them for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, one other thing. In case people haven't heard me harp on this the last few weeks, I would strongly suggest that folks keep their mission statement box to their mission statement. It's as we're reading through hundreds of these, it's just it's a bit of a courtesy at this point. Like, please just state your mission in the mission box. You have a lot of characters available for your narrative, but it does help us. It helps me. I should only speak for myself. It helps me put the rest of the application in context. So please and thank you for future applications. Please just put your mission.
I'm with you on that one, Aaron.
You know, and now that you flagged it, I have been looking at that also, and there's a lot of process that goes into these mission statements a little bit, you know, which I totally agree. Keep it to just the mission statement. So, all right. Anyone else have any comments? I don't see any other hand. Oops. Susan hand went down, I think. So, okay.
I
Okay.
I didn't mean to have my hand up, sorry.
That's okay. All right, with that, we will move on the agenda to our next organization, which is Bluff Lake. And they are asking for funding for one project. With that, I'll open up the discussion.
I think these scientific and nature and environmental oriented organizations are my favorite. I love Ocean First Institute. I love these guys too. They've done a lot being in a fixed location, including outreach to Adams County. I think they're probably in Denver County.
I think
But
they are.
yeah, but they show strong outreach. Well, I love the way they have talked about going out into the communities that they serve, and you know, I guess they're on the border of Adams and Denver out there where they are near the airport, if I'm recalling the right organization. Anyway, they make contacts within the community uh, of potential visitors to their site, and they're accessible too on their website. Every member of the staff, I think every member has an email uh, link so that interesting parties can talk to a member of staff to get more, further, more personalized information. I think that's a wonderful thing. Uh, I thought they were very strong both on their ops and strategy and EDIA. It just, you know, it shows to do it goes to show what an organization can do um, when they have their priorities right and they're ready to seek out people who they can serve in their county, or and in surrounding counties in their communities. So kudos to Bluff Lake Nature Center.
Thanks, Larry. Anyone else?
Yeah, let me add what Larry said, my kudos. And I'll own this as my bias. The scientific ones write to inform. They don't write to impress. Their vocabulary is clean, simple, direct. It doesn't contain a lot of jargon, or it is written so that a newspaper reader of the Westminster Window could understand it. I'm not on a PhD committee, which is one of the applications coming up. And I very much appreciate that. I would hope that people start learning that write these to inform us so that the common everyday layman can read it and understand it without going to a dictionary or a thesaurus, which Bluff Lake does. So do our metalsmiths and the science ones. That's just my bias, and I want to give these guys extra credit for it.
Thanks, Jim. All
Well,
right.
I think I would pile on too with the kudos, but I also want to point out that they have a good distribution of financial supporters and not 100% reliant on FCFD, and I certainly appreciated that as well. So very well written, guys.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I enjoy this application. The last 3 years, there were a couple of things that I noticed that I wanted to point out as positives. I really, they have this section in their grant. I wrote, what a great addition to their grant. Barriers encountered and solutions implemented include. And they list, because we do bring up certain questions sometimes, and it's nice to know, you brought this up with the previous group, Joyce. It's nice to know that folks actually listened, they paid attention, it's always nice to be heard.
Yeah.
And even though it's us on the council. So it really helped me really proved to me that they are an organization interested in developing and listening and learning and growing themselves, which might be a symbol of a science community brain, but it's something that I thought was really nice, and I wanted to point that out. I thought their deficit explanation was fantastic. Again, these are not scary things. Having a deficit or having a problem that was encountered, to Jim's point, you don't have to obfuscate it. Sometimes just going straight at it and saying, we encountered this thing or we had a deficit and here's why, in a clear, concise way, actually gives me more reason to sort of trust them, with capital or with money. I liked their metrics. I thought the new preschool program was so interesting to me. The Forest Preschool. I actually texted a friend of mine who lives right next to them. Who has a kid who's about ready to enter preschool, and I went, hey, it's preschool. So anyway, I think that was just a really interesting and innovative program. And the fact that another way that I could tell they listened to us. They mentioned this year we have created separate specific budgets for each county in order to better reflect how we're serving each county's residents. So that was great. It makes it so much easier for me to then sift through. So well done.
Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else? And just before I move on the agenda, I'm going to say ditto to everything everyone has said, because it's always a well-written grant and very much appreciated. So thank you. All right. Next is Latino Cultural Arts Center. They are requesting funding for 2 projects. So I will open up the discussion.
I'll jump in here. I really enjoyed this application. Um, yes, their mission statement, it takes a bit to wade through at the front end of it. But once I got into the application, I really appreciated how they laid it out. They included links so that it was easy to jump back and forth and kind of see what was happening on their website. I thought it was thorough and thoughtful. They too have a deficit, and I think that they did pretty adequate job of describing what was going on and how they're counteracting what was happening fiscally for them. I will say that they're, in looking at their financial review, the revenue and expenses reported in their application don't align with the audit that was happening. So that is something to be mindful of when looking at scoring this application. But overall, I really thought it was well done. Their project descriptions, I thought, were really thorough as well. And sometimes we don't always get that information. And when you read many of these, it's just so helpful when everything is presented in a complete fashion in those project descriptions. So appreciate that part of their application, but overall appreciate the application as a whole.
Thank you. Anyone else? Did I see Jim's hand or no? No. Okay. So let me kind of jump in, and maybe everyone else can kind of help me with this a little bit. I did appreciate, how they explained things, and they gave us a lot of information and a lot of data concerning how it, in either project, how it actually impacts Adams County, but I didn't really get the feeling that I knew how it impacted Adams County. So I guess I need a little help with this, because I'm just a little not quite sure how to determine that.
Yeah, Joyce, I felt the same way specifically about project 1. Oh, sorry, Larry, you had your hand up. My apologies. I didn't see it.
That's okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had the same question about project 1. I didn't see I'm not seeing a ton of benefit or impact rather, not benefit. There's obviously benefit, but I'm
Right.
not seeing a lot of impact
Right.
with project 1. Project 2 makes a little more sense to me in terms of impact. So I rated it a little higher, but I was having a hard time as well with project 1.
Anyone else?
Well, yes, I mean, my sense as I was reading this is Project 2 looks to me like 4 projects rolled into one title. And that may be something that I think we need to be talking about in September, is how we are defining what a project is. Because when you've got what I was reading is essentially 4 different programs all under one name taking place at 10 different venues, spread out over 10 different workshops, which wasn't clear. That just was where it was fuzzy.
Okay,
I don't know if this is, feel free to tell me that I shouldn't be speaking here, but I worked with the Latino Cultural Center to sort of liaise on the project one. And so it's held at schools in Adams County for Adams County students. So I guess I don't understand where the confusion lies with project one supporting Adams County.
Yeah, and that's over Westminster High School and Hidden Lake. I mean, that's my backyard, so.
I'm seeing 24 students. I'm seeing $14,000 in funding for 24 students.
Right. For an intensive
Right.
10-week curriculum. I think it's 10 weeks.
Understood. And I totally understand that number of people does not equate with impact. We've talked about that in years past. But there are questions, and I think it's legitimate that there are questions about the budget and how many Adams County residents are impacted. I don't think that's an illegitimate question to ask, but
Okay, maybe I misunderstood the question. Dana, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I have to agree with Jessica. I mean, not Jessica, Lord, Zoe. We get it a lot. People are saying they want to get a lot of bang for their buck, which we don't use. I think it's hard to equate the request amount with impact. So I'm a little confused what the issue is with the amount of funding that they're requesting.
I don't think it's illegitimate for the council to ask these questions. I'm feeling a little bit shamed in this moment.
Mhm.
So we can talk about this later, but yeah, I stand by what I said.
Yeah, and I do too. Maybe there was more data than we needed in there. I'm just not sure, but it was just
Well,
challenging for me.
I mean, they're creating a public a public work. You've got these 48 students creating something, a mural, that's what's not made specific, a mural or some work of public art, which remains in Adams County and
Mhm.
has an ongoing impact. I mean, that's the way I was reading it. So that, yeah, if I was looking at just the number of students within the project year, it's small, but they are creating something with lasting impact. At least that was my read of it. It was not spelled out as clearly and succinctly as I would have liked, but that was the way I read it.
And that makes more sense. I was confused by that.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. I thought this was an educational training program for kiddos. I didn't get yeah, so I'll take another look at it.
Yeah. And it's going to be located in Denver proper, basically. And I'm just kind of wondering is that mural gonna be it's right there, it says 800 Calumet, but is it gonna be at the school that they're, yeah, where is, and how long? I mean, I don't know. I guess I have to look at it again. And when are they gonna start the project? I'll take a look at it again. Anyone else?
Just one question. I've noticed that a lot of organizations, especially with school-related programs, have the requested start date and as the 1st of January, requested end date as of the 31st of December. Now, this is just for my own edification. Does that mean that, for example, this project will last half of the 25-26 school year and half of the 26-27 school year? Or does that have anything to do with what they or how they apply? I just wonder about that basically, but
That's
it's
a
not.
great question, Larry. The guidelines for use of funds, they have to use the funds by the end of the year. So 12/31/2026, they should have expended all the funding. And then the following grant will, well, I don't know, it would cover subsequent times.
Does that represent their fiscal year, that January to December?
I take it as they're using it to cover the spring of one year and the fall of another. That's how I look at it.
Thank you, Dana.
Okay. Thanks, Dana. Anyone else?
Project 2, I will say Roses and Thorns. So project 2 I thought was super creative. I did see it as one project, the idea of the ofrendas, and they're linking it with seasons. And Jim, was that the one you were thinking it looked like 4 different projects?
Yeah, yeah.
To me it looks like the same project but just with different, it's four pieces to the same pie. That's the way I viewed it, with the ofrendas and with different seasons and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was really clever. But yeah, I think all in all, what they may get from this is that there is confusion. So it might be worth behoove them to clarify some things for their next application.
Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no other hands, we'll move on the agenda to Ocean First Institute. And I believe they are asking funding for one project. Okay. Open up the discussion.
Well, like I said, this is one of my favorite organizations to apply to Colorado. I loved them last year, again this year. Um, Kudos for their entire application. Like Jim was saying, the scientific organizations seem to have more, conciseness with their language, and it's really helpful to me. I love their mission statement that said, well, yeah, part of their mission statement is bringing the reef to the Rockies, and that just intrigues me.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, on that point, I thought I'm not familiar with this organization, and I didn't appreciate that as the mission statement, particularly because it didn't say to me really what they do. So I had a different take on the mission than you guys do. So it's clever, and I understand it, but I'm just sort of like really just put in 2 sentences, well, one long sentence what you actually do.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Jim.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
for it, Joyce. Nope.
Oh, it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also think this group is kind of a slam dunk. The only question I had, this is just me. Their contributed income, their detail of contributors, lists one number in their financial overview. It is $72,672.22 different. Again, I'm learning that might be other SCFD funders, but when they're that far off for my brain, and probably my brain alone, it'd be nice to have just a small little sentence on maybe why those don't match. But I think the actual project itself, the fact that they've gone to 100% free education programming over the course of years, and that they laid out how they stair-stepped their way to that, I thought was pretty cool. And just the idea of engaging kiddos in microplastic education. I mean, how do you research the oceans in Colorado? It's just such a neat program, and it sounds like really important work. So I enjoyed it.
Yep. I just wanted to add to Larry and to Aaron and everyone that spoke. This is one of my favorite organizations, and reading what they do, and something that jumped out at me that I appreciate is that the students, when they're volunteering, can earn credit for school too. So I just thought that was really a good idea. So, and anything that empowers STEM, I just really say, yay, this is wonderful, for everyone in the future, and the students and everybody involved. So love the grant, love what they do. Anything else? No? All right. So the next organization is Denver Brass, and they are requesting funding for 2 projects. So with that, I'll open up the discussion. Do I see any hands? See anything?
Sorry, reading through my notes.
Mm-hmm. I'll just kind of start off. I always enjoy reading, especially, with the groups where they perform at memory care and different facilities that, sometimes the residents can't get out to appreciate what they do. And so I really enjoy reading that. I did note that they had a little, there was some deficit, but again, they explained in the narrative why and what their plan was to overcome the funding that they had, so issues that they had. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, I thought their story for Project One was very powerful.
Mhm.
Again, very quickly and concisely getting to the heart of what it is, which is impacting people's lives. And
Right.
I can't think of, I mean, it is a brass, they're playing brass instruments, and I went,
Mhm.
sorry, that was me pretending to cry for the
I
transcription
know.
services that are going. What did he say as they read this later? So I thought that was a really powerful story, and a reminder of the power of art and music in our lives, and especially, like you said, for folks who are homebound or bed bound. So that was really
Yeah.
great, and I want to congratulate them on. It looks like they have a large base of individual giving. That's really impressive for an arts organization. And I know different organizations operate in different ways and have different funding streams and different business plans. But it is nice to see it when an arts organization has a large group of individual donors. Obviously, they're reaching the community that they're trying to serve. So kudos to them.
Mhm.
That's hard to do.
It is.
I'll echo what was been said before. Wanted to say that I appreciate the two projects that they presented in that, of course, the content that was presented and being shared, but that they're very specific projects that are simple in a way, that are, you know, very clearly one project, a second project, not multiple things put together. So, you know, they're an organization that has applied many years in a row, and, you know, obviously is they're joining the sessions and paying attention to our feedback and comments and making sure that what they're requesting falls in line with the application. So appreciated that and the rest of their application.
Any other hands? Okay. Thank you. So the next organization we have on the agenda is DAVA, the Downtown Aurora Visual Arts, and they are requesting funding for 2 projects. And I'll open up the discussion. So I'll kind of start off this one. I do appreciate this organization and, you know, how they have presented everything throughout the years. I'm always excited to see what they have coming up next. And I really appreciated when I was reading the grant and I had questions, and then as I continued reading, I found the explanations to these things, which I really definitely appreciate them doing. So thank you so much for the detail.
Yeah, this is one of those organizations that is right on the line, sort of like Bluff Lake, where they are right on the border of the county, and I appreciated them offering very clear metrics of who they're, how many Adams County kiddos they're serving as part of their total. So that's really great, useful information for me.
Mhm. Anyone else?
I like the way this grant was written, in the sense that when I was reading about the programs and even in the projects, they're like, you know, this is family, this is children, whatever, and they really did a good job of clarifying in an easy to understand way what they do. So thank you for that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a question once again about the anticipated attendees versus the money they're asking for. Quick question. I'll boil it down to this. There are 2,400 enrolled participants in this in Project One, and 550 are from Adams County. Adams County makes up just under 23% of the anticipated attendees. My question is 23% of Adams County residents worth $30,000?
It's funny, I wrote a similar thing and then I went, oh, it's such a modest ask compared to their total budget. Because the programs are so expensive to run. So it's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't looking at the $30,000, and this goes back to our previous conversation, right? Like, what is impact, and how do we individually, because we all have our individual metrics on what that means, and that's why there's so many of us on this council. So I think, yeah, for me, I saw a slightly different. I saw it as a very modest ask compared to the total budget.
Right, and when
Um,
I look at that now, I see that the ask was only roughly 7% of the total budget for Project One. So um, I guess that's a thought.
Yeah, and I kind of looked at that also, and then as I continued to read, though, I was looking at how the programming was running, and it really is taking in consideration, I mean, really from age 3 to graduation. So, I mean, they run through, the whole cycle of development, so I just thought um, that this was a good project overall. And I did note, and probably more to Aaron's than anything else, they explained what was in the project expense, in detail, which I looked at that and I went, what's going on? And then I continued on with it. So in the other category.
Joyce, I'd like to say, this is a great program, but here again, as I'm reading through this, we have a project, but this project consists of family arts, which is very different than open studio, which is very different than job training, which is very different in my reading of creative action by teens. And here again, this all struck me as we bundled 4 different projects under one title. And these are, when I was reading through it, these are 4 very distinct, different sort of ongoing operations. They're all very valuable. They're all worthwhile. They're all great. But it just strikes me as we've got 4 projects bundled under one title. And I don't have a problem doing that if we agree and have some discussion in September that that's acceptable and appropriate. But because a project is a project, and maybe that's just my somewhat implicit but more explicit bias. A project is a project, and I can define a project. I can define family arts, it's done well, open studio, but how do they fit in together isn't made clear to me. Just
That's interesting.
It is on the agenda for the retreat. And as you know, the guidelines do define a project with a specific beginning and end, explicit objectives, predetermined costs, connected set of activities, or a specific event. And I think that what has been determined is that that is what it says. And then it's really up to each individual council member to say, this isn't one project, and then to score accordingly. But we can definitely, it is on the agenda for September.
Yeah, they actually, now I'm reading through it. I mean, they actually say it in their second, in Project 2. We're seeking project support to boost community engagement through 2 DAVA programs. Is that one program? Is that 2 programs? Yeah, it's an interesting. How do you look at that, Jim? Since this is the conversation between us, between all of us, what category does that sort of fall under for you?
I'm sorry, Aaron, what it's project 2?
Just in general, when you're looking at that, we've got our 5 buckets or 5 ratings. I'm just trying to learn how you all think a little bit. What does that affect for you?
I've give me a second to find my,
Is it
I don't know,
operations and strategy?
I am biased is the way I read it, whether this is the organization's missions and objectives, but this is more like operations and strategy.
Right,
Uh,
right.
how, um, that's where I put it, under
Yeah.
their operations and strategy.
Yeah,
And then the impact on the county, I mean, it doesn't strike me as being the impact gets spread out, and I have to make an assessment. And here again, this is I'll bring this up again, and certainly in September, our ability to get some clarification from the organization, which we don't have. And the longer I'm at this, the less I don't like that.
The more you don't
Okay.
like that, or the le-
Yeah, I just sense, I want to ask, I want to get feedback
okay.
on these things. I want to have the opportunity to get clarification where I think things are fuzzy, and it may all make, if someone explains it, may make great sense, but it's just, I do have a few conservative bones in giving out taxpayer money when I don't have a clear understanding. Rankles my progressive, it's a conservative bone that rankles my progressive thinking.
So, Jim, it is on the agenda for our retreat, so definitely we will bring it up and we can kind of talk over, the pros and cons to all of that. So, but I just want to make a comment about the programming. As much as I'm the one that notices these things, for some reason I did not look at the grant the same way you're bringing it out. And now that you have brought out some of the highlights and the questions about multiple projects and how the impacts are and so forth, I definitely am going to go back and look at it again, so I mean, it just didn't, for some reason I didn't feel that way when I read it, but definitely going to look at it again. Anyone else? Did I see a hand, Susan, or was that you just waving at us? Okay. You're at the top of my screen and it's just enough that I can. All right. Anyone else? Right. So our next organization is Denver Young Artists, and they are requesting funding for 2 projects. With that, I'll open up the discussion.
I gave them, this organization, a higher score in its impact on Adams County residents for project 2 than I did for project 1. For project 1, I guess the Stanley Marketplace down in Aurora is in Adams County.
Mhm.
But it appears to me that, how the project benefits the residents of Adams County is just kind of left to chance. So I scored that just a touch lower. Project 2 is a lot more clearly defined.
We were talking about the Gaylord, now we're talking about Stanley. As
Right.
somebody who will be walking to the Stanley when this meeting is done, as an Adams County resident who will be but I hear you. It's tricky, right? These organizations that are right on the lines. We were just talking about Dava. We're talking about Bluff Lake. We're talking about you know, I hear you. And it's tricky to sort of evaluate. It's hard because that is a location where I consume a lot of art, especially these patio concerts. I love them as an Adams County resident, but you don't know. You're right. It's kind of like just spreading wildflower seeds and hoping they hit an Adams County patch of dirt. Um, yeah, that was a terrible metaphor. Yeah. Um, I will say though, it is very as an arts organization, I can see the pull because Stanley Marketplace is very popular, and so moving it to a place that is slammed every day, you know, where you do have a lot of people. Um, I can see the pull for an organization moving to Stanley Marketplace. Um, it was interesting to me, the first project, their, you know, attendance last year was, if I'm reading this correctly, 170. They're expecting 100 additional attendees, which, you know, kudos. I think I'm just curious where they're getting that number. Maybe since it's the second year at the same location, they, you know, again, assuming best intent that they will see an increase in attendance because of that consistency.
Can I just ask a question of Larry? I'm dwelling a little bit on what you previously said, like you want to better understand the impact that it brings. And I'm wondering if you might be able to verbalize a little bit of what you might be looking for. Is it, you know, how they plan to market and outreach to the locations around, to the county? Is it to more of a project description? Maybe I don't know if you're willing, and maybe it's not a conversation for tonight, but I think it might be helpful for me certainly, but maybe other organizations listening in to really understand how do they want us to describe the impact that we're going to bring.
Well, I just looked at the first point of the rubric, organization marketing strategy is specific to the county where the programming will occur. It doesn't seem to me that they do this. Like I said, they kind of left it up in the air. You know, it's in Adams County, but we don't have any specific, or at least it seems to me that in this project, they don't have any specific outreach to Adams County. It's like, here you go, Adams County. It's here, and we'll take you, and we'll take whoever else. But they're not. They don't seem anyway to be focused on how they can draw the most, you know, Adams County residents to this thing. And maybe not it's maybe not the most, but if they're looking for Adams County funding, then there should be a stronger outreach to Adams County itself. I mean, I think by now I'm speaking in generalities, but did that answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, it helps add a little color. I didn't really read the application and come to that same conclusion. Although I will say that generally speaking, as I read these applications, I am looking at what, you know, how they're marketing and what kind of programming that they're providing. And I think, you know, by mission, you know, this is a performance-based organization. You know, there is educational components to it, but it's performance-based. And that's what this festival is doing. So to me, those things align, but I very much appreciate your perspective on that and trying to understand and help these organizations do a better job of presenting, you know, how is this going to impact? How are we reaching you? How are we pulling you in to whatever programming that we're offering. So thanks for sharing that. And I hope it's helpful to the rest of the participants here.
Thanks, Emily and Larry. Anyone else? Well, just to add to the conversation a little bit, probably in the EDIA category, but I appreciated the fact that they launched a new website, which was bilingual, and also it was accessible to folks with ADA issues. And so I really appreciated that. And also how they revised their job description to attract more of a diverse candidate for staffing for the group. So I really appreciated that.
I also like their advisory board, their
Mhm.
that's separate from the board of directors and so forth. And this seems specifically for the purposes of EDIA practices, and uh, along with the advisory board, they have I believe they are student and parent representatives who
Right.
are part of that. So everyone's included, and um, having the parents there is, along with student representatives, keeps the feedback fresh and flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire that of this group.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda to WOW Children's Museum. So with that, they're asking for funding for 2 projects. Do I see any hands? No? And I'll start it off with, of course, I always appreciate what the Children's Museum does. They have a lot of great programs for the kiddos. But in Project One, and I was just wondering, I was struggling for me with the attendance numbers. So it looks like, I don't know if it's a typo or what it was, but my notes for the what I have written down here, the project for the last 2 months of the year are but it states the attendance for the project for this coming year, if I'm reading this right, is 11,280, but that's what basically they had almost for last year. So I'm just kind of wondering if there was a typo in there or just what that attendance looks like. I just wasn't, it was like 5 times more for this year than it was for the entire year of last year. I don't know if did anybody else read it that way, or let's see.
Yeah, I had a little question about attendance, and this goes, this is the theme for today, I guess. Um, the their total ask of us is almost 32,000.
Right.
Looking at their attendance numbers, we received 2% of their attendance last year. For example, Boulder, where they are, was 94%, and their ask is, I went in, their ask is 40,000 for Boulder. So they're asking us for 34 for 2%. But again, impact is different for all of us. So I've heard
Right.
that loud and clear from people today. So I was struggling to make that match a bit. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Aaron, as I was continuing to read my notes here, when I looked at the activity sheet for last year, for the entire year was 10,958. But their attendance in the project that they're talking about for this year was 11,000 something. And so I was kind of like, how does that add up? You know, so yeah.
Well, here again, Joyce, in that project, they have Storytime Tree. They have what they admit are two new projects. They have Storycraft, they have their ballet, and they have the Clifford Still. Now, I was making the assumption that they had nearly 11,000 so-called Adams County people come through in the last year. They're saying we'll get 11,280. Okay. And they're gonna do it based on their Storytime Tree, the two new projects, which they don't tell what they are, just two new projects, the way I read it.
Mhm.
They have the Steam at Max, the Storycraft, their ballet and opera, whatever, and then the Clifford Still project that they're bringing up. So here again, they've got a lot of parts to this project, and I don't know that. So I was making the assumption that the 11,000 was all of those parts.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense to
And
me.
all those parts are are project one, as I read it.
Okay.
I,
Yeah.
I, I got the impression, I mean, to me, it's just all the things they do in operating the museum, and they're expecting more people from Adams County to come, and they do all these, not programs separating it. The project is the museum operations, and then those are all the things they do to entertain and engage kids.
But we
Well
don't
said. The
provide
project is the museum's operation.
Yeah, that they're asking for money to support the number of Adams County kids and people that come.
Right, but we don't support GOS unless
Right.
they provide over 50% of their programming in Adams County. So that
Right.
to me reads as a GOS grant
Well,
as
I,
opposed to a project grant.
Right.
well, I can't speak to how, I mean, I really liked this grant. I like the museum. I think they do great things with the kids, and maybe that I don't know if that's what they were saying, but I can see where, having worked in museums, that they want to be able to apply the money to the things that they do, specifically program related, not GOS with admin or salaries or anything else like that. But specifically program related and having more Adams County people. So that didn't upset me in any way. I mean, if you want to call it GOS, I would have think a lot of other things would be included in that. This is program based.
Yeah.
Dana has her hand raised, and also Larry, you did at one point. I'm not sure if you pulled it down
I
or
have,
if you have something to add.
no, I
Okay,
pulled
so
it down.
Dana,
I,
Dana.
I just want to concur with what Susan said about them what their project request is, that they're providing services, engagement to Adams County residents. It's no different than some of the festivals. It's no different than Dino Ridge. It's no different than the Molly Brown House. I just want to make sure that we're treating all of these organizations on a level playing field when it comes to, and not questioning if they're trying to get GOS funding to promote or get funding to do their GOS their general operating versus a project.
Okay. Thanks, Dana.
I think one project is what they do in the museum, and then project number 2 is their outreach into the schools. That made sense to me.
And because Dana and I are going to go toe to toe today, we are bound and determined to go toe to toe today. I think when we're looking at things like Dino Ridge, we're looking at things like Dragon Boat Festival, which will be coming up. We're looking at, so for example, in this project, for this particular grant, project 2 to me is very Adams County related, has direct impact, and is a program, right? I'm sort of, I understand Jim's point on this. Project 1 feels like 5 projects, 6 projects, it feels like a lot of projects rolled into one, and we've talked about that a lot. So I don't think that's, we've talked about it a lot. So I don't feel like we're treating these groups differently than we've had this discussion before. But that's me.
All right. Any other comments? Let's see. I wasn't sure if I saw a hand or not. Okay. All right. If there's no other discussion on the Children's Museum, we'll move on to, let's see what we have here. Rocky Mountain Arts Association. And they are requesting funding for 2 projects.
I was very impressed with this organization. I was very impressed with their history. Their
Mhm.
history tells a tale of forming as almost an underground group, and from there how they progressed to today's societal acceptance. You don't see much. You don't see this kind of compelling story lately. Uh, but this was very compelling. It's a wonderful story of overcoming oppression, and I was fascinated by their history, and that certainly drew me into their application as a whole, which is very strong in my view.
Any other discussion?
I wholeheartedly agree, Larry. I really enjoyed this from start to finish, and they're tackling a lot of different issues. They had a deficit. They were able to really clearly explain that from my perspective, and what they're doing to counter that. I thought the projects are I think will prove very impactful for this particular county. Um, and the kind of programming that they're choosing to present within those projects really aligns with their mission from start to finish. So yeah, I really enjoyed the whole application.
Yeah, I totally agree with both Emily and Larry concerning this application. Everything you've said. Anyone else? All right, before we move on, we are
I've
more
got a-
than,
Oh, sorry.
no,
I
that's
was
okay.
raising my hand. I apologize, Joyce. I should
I
just,
didn't see
I
you,
know
I'm
you're
sorry.
yeah, no, you're great. Can somebody help me on this? Because again, this is what's great about these conversations, is getting other people's insights. Contributed revenue, details of contributors, $190,345. Financial overview, contributed revenue, $430. That's by far that is the largest that, and I'm in their financial review, or their the report, what's it called? Major contributor list. And I'm seeing corporate, foundational, all that individual. Does anybody have any thoughts on, I mean, that is a massive difference. Any thoughts on what that could be? I mean, that's 300 grand. I mean, that's
Yeah, that's a
so
lot.
anyway, With something like that, and again, I'm not sure what the application process looks like. They're putting in their metrics, all that sort of stuff. But I would ask in the future if there could be a little clarity on that. That could be great.
Thank you. All right. Now, is there any other hands up? All right. With that, we'll move on then. And like I was going to say, does anyone need a break at this point before we move on, or shall we just move on? I'm okay moving on.
I could use a break, just like 2 minutes.
Sure. Okay. Why don't we take how about a 5-minute break? 2 minutes isn't enough. Okay. All right. See you all in 5 minutes. Okay.
27.
Next on the agenda is Vintage Theater Productions. And they are requesting funding for one project.
Well, I don't mind starting. I enjoyed reading this grant, and I thought that the way they described their organization and their programs and their approach to program evaluation was so easy to understand because it was almost an outline. So I enjoyed reading this grant, and I think that their young people's theater programming is really great.
Thank you.
My
Anyone-
notes, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
My notes say 2 things. Excellent application, very well organized and written.
Yes.
I'd like to echo that with a but. It seems to me we've got other organizations who are doing projects, theatrical projects, and they can tell us what they are this far in advance. They're doing how many I forget how many shows, and they're on different sites, and they haven't decided what their plays are going to be at this point. They're I'm going, I don't need to know it, but it would seem to me that at this point in time, you would have some idea of 1 or 2 of your whatever. Just it's excellent, but what are you going to be doing? And we have other organizations that can tell me that far out.
Okay.
I'm just a cranky old guy.
No, I'm just reading through my notes to see if I picked up on any of that at all, so.
I picked up on that, Jim. I did appreciate that they did kind of provide some insight into what they have previously chosen to produce so that there may be an idea or a context of, generally speaking, this might be in the realm. But, even if they were to suggest we're considering, these 10 shows and we're going to select from that grouping, even that would maybe be helpful. And maybe letting them know that here in this context will help them go, oh, it's okay if we haven't decided, but they want to have some sense of what we're after, or what kinds of productions we might be considering, right? So that may be helpful for them as they go forward.
Thanks, Emily.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
I do appreciate their reaching out to our friends to the east.
Mhm.
I think that's pretty fantastic.
And I did appreciate their calling out the partnerships in the Aurora Cultural Arts District. That's really great that they're being able to share the resources. So that's very good. And again, you know that I always love it when they go out to Bennett and Strasbourg. So always. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to Dragon Boat. And they are requesting funding for 2 projects. So I'll open up the discussion.
Happy Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month to everyone. I'm looking forward to the Dragon Boat Festival in out here in in the park out the Riverdale Park is what I'm trying to say. Because the last 2 years I have been working during that time. This year I will not be working, so I'm looking forward to attending that, as well as our retreat in September.
Impact Adams County. This is another one of those grants, and I think I might just be a little more sensitive to it this year, just knowing about the economic uncertainty that I think a lot of folks are feeling and spending, and how that's gonna shake down in terms of sales tax and all that sort of stuff, and dollars available. Um, I'm not seeing a lot in Project One. I think this is a great program. I think both of these programs are great. I think it's awesome. I think they're very clever with their use of the what are the edutainment participation, really painting a picture of how they're using these events to educate the public, and how they're obviously very successful cultural events in both counties. Um, I'm having a hard time linking direct impact on Adams County for Project One. Um, some groups, we've talked about a few today, and we all have different views on how we, you know, rate that criteria. But this one, I'm not seeing a lot of effort to really target, whether it's through marketing or whether it's through transportation, or whether there's some groups that will bus people in from Adams County, and so it's a little easier for my brain to make that connection. The event is very cool for Project One. It's very neat, it's very successful. I'm not seeing a big impact on Adams County. However, Project Two, how amazing that they created a similar program, and it is at Riverdale Regional Park, and sort of bringing that program to Adams County. For me, they're night and day in terms of impact on Adams County residents. So I think Project Two, absolutely slam dunk. Um, they talk about a 10% number, but then they also, for Project One, of Adams County residents, but then they also say that they're relying on Denver Police Department's head counts and some other things. So um yeah, if they could break that down a little bit more, it might alter my rating on impact of Adams County for Project One.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I had the same reaction, especially because in the description of Project One, the last paragraph was all about Riverdale Regional Park and your partnership with Adams County, and it was kind of like, yeah, but this is the one in Sloan's Lake. So I had a little bit of the same reaction, but this is monster event, and they do a great job every year. And I appreciate their um, financial viability and all of those things. But I had this project too. It would have a better impact for it.
Susan, I think you're cutting out a little bit, at least on my end. I don't know. Here.
I'll try to talk better into the PC. I'm in a hotel, so I can't help you.
It wasn't you. I whatever. Okay, but I appreciate you doing that. You know, and I'm wondering too if they weren't a little bit sensitive to maybe being about the attendance. And what I was reading also, even though they were talking about the 10%, then they later on in the narrative talked about the fact that they paid a lot of these folks. And so the contractors and vendors and those folks that came from Adams County, they were bringing money back to Adams County. I don't know if that makes any, but anyway, they did talk about that also. So that money would be coming back in at least a small percentage of it would be coming back. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, it is in the middle. It's Denver, you know, so.
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry. These are these are the kind of organizations that, I think that Dragon Boat is special in that in their outreach efforts because they have reached out and founded a race in Adams County. Uh, but they're one of those organizations that are in a fixed location. You got to come to them. And over the last couple of years, I have noticed that they have made efforts, for the Adams County funding to keep better track of who's coming in and out. And this year's their inclusion of vendors and the like from Adams County um, would seem to me to draw more Adams County people. It's possible. I'm not sure how that would work practically, but it would seem to me that if there are more Adams County vendors, etc., that they are and this organization is noticing that in their application, it could have the effect of drawing more Adams County residents. Still, Project 2 gets a higher score in that category than Project 1 does. It's just natural.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments?
Well, yeah, I'd like to add on sort of piggyback on that. I forget one of the others, they list the Adams County vendors. And what I remember is the Adams County vendors brought the fencing in. And it would be nice if you're going to say we've got vendors, performers, contractors, whatever. You had to have known who was there last year or in the last one. Tell us who they were, what they're like, so we have that idea that it's not just, well, we got vendors coming. Well, I take you at your word and I believe you, but it reinforces if you tell me we've got popcorn vendors, we've got people bringing whatever types of supplies or whatever. And they must know that. And it seems it wouldn't be that difficult to add that interesting detail to this and give us a sense of who those vendors and performers and whatever are and who the racers are. Which boats are the Adams County boats?
the Adams County boats are being stored at Riverdale Regional Park.
Well, they're
Right.
all being stored at Riverdale Regional Park, but which one is powered by Adams County muscle?
Jim, for clarification, because I know Sarah's on the call, are you specifically speaking of Project 1, 2, or both? When you say that you want more specificity in And
It's under Project One. I was just going there in Project One, describe how the project benefits Adams County.
okay, I got it. I got it. Thank you.
That's-
Okay. All right, Jim, anything else?
No, I'm,
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, Joyce, I'm thinking about Emily's. Sorry, I had to grab my charger because my computer's about to die.
Uh-oh.
Thinking about Emily's request for, what's something to take away, and I'm giving some thought around these events that are um not in Adams County, right? And why from the first year where I was doing this compared to now where my brain, because I can only speak for myself, where my brain is at. And I think the answer that I'm coming to is we're having these grants are getting more and more competitive. We
Mhm.
have more and more folks applying for funding from Adams County. There are a lot of folks listening to us and bringing their programming to Adams County for Adams County residents. And I think these large sort of, what did you say, Larry? They're locked into their Denver locations. I don't know if there is a good answer um, for them. I think everything Jim's saying is great, but just in my mind, things are getting more competitive. So it might be good for them to know, they might know, but they might not know that we are receiving a lot more applications that are Adams County specific than we used to. So I'm just throwing that out there for general consumption. Obviously, things like the museum and the zoo and all benefit Adams County residents, even though they're locked in, as does this. Dragon Boat is very, very important, but I just wanted to throw that piece of my thinking in there.
Okay. Good point. All right, anyone else? Not seeing any hands. So I will move on the agenda then to platform, and they are requesting funding for 2 projects. We'll open up the discussion.
I was very impressed by this organization's EDIA principles and practices. Not only are they living up to them, but they are taking active steps to protect community members who might be affected by the current political environment. So definitely kudos to them for that.
Okay. Any other hands?
Yeah, I really appreciated the breakdown of the budget in the project requests, for especially the first project. It just really helped me understand how they're thinking about it. I mean, it's a relatively small budget for what they're trying to do. But that aided my review of this application. And I would also agree with what's been said before. I very much appreciate what this organization is trying to achieve and the programming that they're offering. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I appreciate it in Project 2. Appreciate them writing the grant for Project 2. That organization, their collaborator moving into the area is really important and cool. And I think it's I personally think it's a great benefit to Adams County, especially our densely populated urban section of Adams County and our very diverse, southern area. So thank you for writing that as a separate project, and thanks for bringing that in, because that used to sit in another county and now it sits in ours, and I think it's a huge value add for Adams County.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll just add, I totally agree. Ditto, with both Emily and Aaron. I really appreciated this grant and what they are doing for Adams County. So thank you. Seeing no other hands, we will move on the agenda then to Mirror Image. And they are requesting funding for one project. So I'll open up the discussion.
I thought that this group shows some real financial initiatives with their merchandise page on their website. They have some pretty cool stuff for sale. And it can only go to, pad their bottom line. But I thought it was good initiative on their part.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I wrote a note, something about their attendance being down 50% year over year. Did anybody else clock that? Um, I'm just curious. The other thing that so first of all, I think this is amazing. Thank you for bringing this programming to Adams County. It's yeah, like personally, I think this is incredibly needed work. And really, really important work intervening. And I think the arts is so important when we're talking about intervening with youth who might be on a path to, yeah, anyway, it was great. There, yeah, so I had that question about attendance, seeing if anybody else caught that or read that differently. I did have a question about their mission statement. So they have very clear one sentence, right, Susan? They had one sentence, but then later they said, we've got a new mission, which is to collaborate with youth in disrupting the prison pipeline. So
It just
yeah,
wasn't
anyway,
mission 2
it
times.
was yeah, it was interesting. So just anyway, like that was just one of those things. I totally get it's hyperbole. Like we've got this new mission and they're sort of generalizing the mission, but it made me stop for a second. And actually I just read it again and went, oh no, they do match. They're just different.
Yeah.
It's just different phrasing of the same thing. So
Right,
that was
right.
I worked that out in real time. Thank you all for coming to my TED Talk. I appreciate that. So
No,
but it's
I had
important work.
I had the exact same thing when I'm like, these are kind of different, but I know what they mean. But so I'm not familiar with this organization, and I thought it was an amazing undertaking. To echo your point, Aaron, about having this important work. I don't know what restorative theater is, and there was a lot of outcomes which were described and everything. But I just thought, I think there was one little paragraph, and I would have liked to have a few more examples on like what the theater part of it is. Like what do the kids do? Storytelling, do they do it too, or are they being told story? Kind of how the arts benefit this mission and are integral to their success. That's just me. Because they're not giving a performance. It sounds to me like it's collaborative.
So when I was reading this, more to Susan's point, well, maybe to Aaron's, but anyway, to Susan's point, well, I think some of their programming, the way I was reading it, that they were actually possibly in a group, and each story or piece of it was customized in a way that could help the individual youth. So that's how I picked it up. I'm pretty familiar with restorative justice. And so if I think they're taking that piece of restorative justice and blending it into the arts and trying to make it more palatable and maybe more understandable to the youth. I at least that's my take of it. I actually had been involved quite a bit with restorative justice, so I can kind of visualize what happens in, that particular settings. And I think it's great. I think it's needed, and I think it's a wonderful thing to do. I think I am not familiar with any other nonprofit organization that does something like this particularly, and I applaud them for doing it. It's hard work. It's definitely a lot of hard work. Any other hands? No? All right. Then I will move on to Access Gallery. And they are requesting funding, I believe, just for one project. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Um, I'll pop in here. I really enjoy, I don't know, enjoy is probably the wrong word, but I appreciate what they're doing. It's a piece the community they're serving, um, I think is often underrepresented, and I think it's fantastic work. Larry was talking about the history of Gay Men's Chorus and some of their other choirs, LGBTQ plus choirs, and I really enjoyed reading the history of this organization from 1978. I mean, these legacy organizations. I, there's a lot of, we started in 2001, we started in
Yeah.
2004, which is amazing. I'm like, wow, that's 20 years old. That's incredible.
Mhm.
And then you get a group that's like, we've been around since 1822, and you're like, oh my God. So the 1970s is pretty impressive, just um thinking about when they started. And for me, like, it just sort of blew me away in terms of context. And just, I wasn't born in the 70s. Um, but I'm a student enough of history to know what was sort of going on, and I think that's really impressive. Um, and again, they're asking for, here's a group that has sites all over. They've got them in Denver, they've got them in other places, but they are asking us for funding for an Adams County program, and I
Mhm.
really appreciated that. So thank you. I enjoyed reading this, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else?
Oh, sorry, one other thing. The
Yeah.
fact that they hired a development and a marketing coordinator,
Mhm.
that's huge. Adding staff at that capacity is a really big step. So I'm excited to see how that helps them grow next year.
Right.
Tim's laughing at me.
Aaron, some of us lived through the 70s, and we were old enough to have gone through a dangerous part of the 70s and come out alive.
That's amazing. Well, them too. I think it's cool.
Oh. Anyway, I'm just thinking about what you said. So anyway, anyone else? Have any hands? No, you don't. I have to echo what Jim said. I kind of have been around in the 70s also, so I can kind of appreciate what they've been doing. And I appreciate them trying to come to Adams County, and hopefully they'll bring a lot more events. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, if I read this correctly, 2 of the 3 artists that they're featuring are Adams County artists, so.
Right, right. That's what I read. Yeah.
And that's where that, oh, sorry, that great SCFD event that's held, the Adams County SCFD thank you event. I mean, I feel like it's a great opportunity for these arts groups to meet each or these groups to meet each other, because this feels like an organization that a lot of folks could benefit from collaborating with.
Mhm.
So come to that event. Zoe, you can plug that event here that
Will in 2026 when we have it next.
in 2026.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, it says 3 of their exhibits they're showcasing artists with disabilities. So that's great. That's really good. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, that concludes our agenda as far as going through the organizations tonight. So does anyone have any questions or comments or anything before we adjourn? No?
I do, Joyce, just to let everyone know that I won't be here next week, and Melvin Wardlow will be running the meeting, taking roll call, and around between now and then if you have any questions. So we'll
All
probably
right.
send out another, just an amended agenda for that final 6th that just has his info.
I think you actually did that. You attached both of them last time, 5 and 6. You did.
It just still lists me as the, I don't know how important it is. It's an agenda, but we don't do minutes for these, so I don't know how
It's okay.
formal it needs to be.
It's okay.
Great.
All right. All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can you remind us when everything is due, Dana or Zoe?
May 19th.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, we will see you next week for our final study session. Take care, everybody. Have fun
Everyone, I will
Bye.
see
Good
you
night.
in June.
and enjoy your time off.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.